The following is a Papi Chulo Radio original program. The views and opinions expressed in the commentaries and/or interviews in the following program are solely those of the individuals and are not views of Papi Chulo Radio, its parent, affiliate, or subsidiary companies.
Welcome to Are You Afraid? #AH Stories, a PapiChuloRadio.com original series. Papi Chulo Radio celebrating a decade of podcasting excellence. Today is Monday, July 26th, 2021, and I'm your host, Jeffrey Aruz. During this podcast, we'll be having an in-depth discussion on FX on Hulu's American Horror Stories. Please welcome my co-hosts, Vinny Hatcher.
Hey y'all, don't be afraid of the D.
And Priscilla Rocha.
Damn, how can I top that? I can't. Oh my God.
What you just said is in and of itself a joke within the gay community, so that works too.
Okay, good. Hey, y'all.
Let's jump into our discussion of Season 1, Episode 3, which was titled Drive-In, and premiered on July 22nd, 2021 via FX on Hulu. Here's the official synopsis of the episode. A screening of a forbidden film has disastrous consequences. Dun dun dun. Boom 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 boom. All right, it was a very short sentence. I had to milk it for as much as I can. Okay, so this is the third episode of American Horror Stories. It's an anthology series, as we discussed a whole lot in our previous podcast. The first two episodes was one story all about the murder house and the rubber woman. And this time around, we are in a drive-in for a forbidden film, which is a theme that has appeared in horror films, horror stories, other anthologies before. You know, there's always, a TV series or a film or a story that you can't repeat and or you can't watch because you'll die. So it's a familiar trope. Let's talk about the characters that were featured in Drive-In. Now, I don't know if either of you will agree with me, because we did have, we were not in total agreement for the Rubber Woman story. But something that I did reference when we were talking about it is that I personally found a lot of the characters unlikable. And one of the things in horror, that's really important, especially because there will be a body count, you have to kind of like the characters. You have to root for them, you have to feel for them, so that when they start dying, when the bodies start to pile up, you feel something. Unless, there is a caveat, unless it's torture porn. And then, they really try to make all the characters really unlikable, because there's kind of a joy in watching them die. It's like the Schadenfreude type of thing. So, for me this time around, I will say I really liked the characters. I found them to be rich. I found them to be likable. I found them to be characters that I could root for. I really did. I loved our main duo, our couple, Chad and Kelly. I liked their friends. I think I liked everybody except for Larry Bitterman. But for me, I really enjoyed the cast, and I enjoyed the kooky cast of characters. What did y'all think of the characters? Priscilla?
I liked everybody but Chad. Chad was fucking annoying. With him being like all horny and up for having sex like right then and there, and trying to use like whatever tricks he could to get laid. I was like, my God, you're so lame. You have to be such a guy. Why do you have to be such a guy?
He was such a Chad.
He was such a Chad. But I still found him likable at the end of it all. Like, I understand, like, it was a little cringe that he was really trying to lose his virginity in the beginning. But after that sort of passed and, like, the carnage, I did enjoy him.
Yeah, I liked him more when he was like trying to survive, and when bad stuff started happening to him, I was like, okay, you're getting your comeuppance. You have to survive and you have to defend yourself. And I really felt bad for him. Maybe I'm getting a little too ahead of myself, but during the knife scene really like broke my heart for him.
Oh, the scissors, you mean? I think there were scissors.
Yeah, the scissors.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're good. We're talking about all the characters. Vinny, what about you? Did anyone stand out? Did you like everyone? Did you hate anybody?
I actually, for what the story was, I actually thought they all really worked. I agree with you, Jeff, that they were rich. I mean, they were rich enough and well acted to the point that, like, I agree with Chad. Like in the beginning, I'm like, oh my God, you're such a Chad. Like, oh, you did it with John Krasinski or whatever. Like but he was being a teenage boy,
Not John
So
Krasinski.
Jack Kazicki or whatever it was. I know.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, he was being a teenage boy. He was being that cliche 1980s, 90s slasher. You know, I honestly thought he was going to be a throwaway cast member. Like he was going to die because, okay, first of all, you're breaking the rule. You're trying to have sex, so you're going to have sex and die. I thought he was going to go sleep with another woman or something, but no. I mean, by the end of the episode, he actually had a compressed arc, which is saying a lot because there wasn't a lot of background for these characters, but what we did get, it worked for the dynamic of the show and the relationships. I think all of the characters really served their purpose well, and they played it well. There was definitely MVP is going to be a little bit tricky this time around because we had some great names, we had some great characters, on the screen there. I think my least favorite were probably his two porn buds, as I'll call them, because they were all like, yeah, dude, if you want to get some skirt, you go see Dracula. Like Milo and Quinn were just absolute cringe. But again, they were acted well to make me, because I knew these guys in high school. Like I knew those guys trying to get after girls, and that was all they cared about because they're just teenage boys, and they have this hubris that I think that was one of the things, a big cornerstone of the show was all the actors that went to the show. They had this hubris of like, oh, you were literally being given like the Fisher Price manual or the Cliff's Notes of like, if you go to this show, you're going to die, but you're still going. And so that ignorance and the arrogance of youth was in all of them, even in the girl. Like she never stopped to think like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. Like she had no intuition about it. I actually really, really enjoyed the cast this time around.
Well, it's what they say about Generation Z. If there really was a zombie
Right.
apocalypse, the majority of them will probably die because they're going to want to take a selfie with the zombie.
Yep.
So, yeah. I didn't mind Milo and Quinn because I felt like they fit the stereotype. Milo was really interesting because of his relationship with Dee, but that's also
Agreed.
sort of like the Generation Z of it all, which is kind of neat. Yeah, everybody played their part, and even the smaller characters, whether it's through some of their actions or some of the exposition-y stuff, they all became full, fleshed out, no pun intended, characters throughout
In
this.
multiple ways.
Exactly. Throughout this 40-minute adventure. Some people online were calling it like a zombie thing. I didn't really see it as zombies because I feel like the rule of a zombie is, you have to be the undead, you have to reanimate and that sort of thing. I just saw it as rabid people. And maybe that's why it's called Rabbit Rabbit, because rabid rabid. I mean, it sounds kind of like that. But they all just became sort of like these rabid, violent people over the span of, it felt like a second. I'm sure, we're watching something, so maybe there was a little bit of time lapse that we didn't really notice. What did we think of the horror that was exhibited? So we have rabid people. It's this movie. The movie affects you. We get a little bit of exposition at the end about the movie, the visuals and the sound, triggering fear in your mind and basically making people go batshit crazy, turning them into rabid beasts, basically. What did we think of the horror? The horror, the horror. Vinny?
I agree with you with the rabbit part. For me, it was almost. I don't know if maybe primal is a better word.
Ooh, primal, I like
For what
that.
I took away from it when he was talking about the fear, like you were rabid with fear, like you were literally possessed and crippled by your fear where everything around you was an enemy. And I absolutely love the primal aspect of it all because, you know, we always hear about these stories of like when human beings are put into really extenuating circumstances, life-threatening or really scary, like the things that people will do to survive are astronomically crazy at times. And so when you think about like what happens when all of our civility, all of our cities, all of our humanity basically is stripped away and all you have is fear and primal instinct. It was actually kind of a fascinating study of like the way that they use the film to do the subliminal messaging to really trigger like there's no cognizance, there's no consciousness. And so I loved it. I think it was, you know, for the compressed episode that we have, I think that I would have actually kind of liked to see more happening at the movie theater. I wanted to see more people going crazy, like more instances of like what I'm sure we'll talk about in the car with Dee and Milo. You know, like I wanted to see
Oh, we're
more of it
talking about that,
unraveling.
yes.
But even though I didn't, I don't mind. I think that it was portrayed really, really well. The sense of urgency, the build-up, and the breakneck pace that we kind of had for a while there, I think it was really awesome. And the gore was, I was honestly very surprised at the level of gore that we had in some instances. Like, I didn't expect it, and it was kind of refreshing because this was a throwback episode for me. It was like a throwback to what I grew up watching, where there the cheese was minor. This was like I'm talking back in like before they were like, okay, horror movies are a joke now. We're going to be just cheesy. Back when they took them seriously when they were making them, and then after they came out, you actually found areas that were slightly corny, slightly cheesy, but overall, it was seriously filmed. I think the horror was presented wonderfully.
Yeah, props to the makeup people. The carnage, the blood, the guts, fantastic. Props to the sound people as well. Because especially when Bitterman was explaining the subliminal audio and that kind of stuff, we got some of that as he was explaining it. Like, I heard the bees and that sort of thing. Like, it was really neat what they did. And can we all agree, when Milo was getting fellatiated by Dee, we all knew that penis was getting bitten off, right?
Yeah, that part I was kind of like, oh damn, and you didn't even like his reaction. I felt was even too little for what happened. Like your penis just got bitten off. Wouldn't you be screaming bloody murder and like pushing him away and like I don't know, just reacting like a wacky wailing inflatable tube man or something, just like going crazy in your car or something? You just kind of like whimpered. What?
Was it fellatio or was it filatio?
Jenna Pace has joined the podcast.
I know that was Jenna. She was possessing me for a moment.
Yes, that's a deep
No.
callback.
In the exact moment that, but can we just give the D props for like the way he went in for the kiss and then was like, nah, I'm going down there. Like it was just so
Yeah.
fluid. Yeah. Yeah, I knew that was coming, and it was
Oh,
definitely
God. And
like
I've
I
seen
didn't
it.
think they were actually going to show it.
I've seen it twice, and I've winced both times. Like
Yes.
there's a pain. Like I don't feel that kind of pain, but I feel in every fiber of my being, I was like, ooh. And then they show it, like chewed up. Like I'm just like, no. Props to them for doing it. Like, I don't know if this would have been on, like, FX. Like, could they have shown that on FX? I don't know, but it's on FX on Hulu. They can drop as many fucks as they want, literally. Yeah, it was awesome. Oh, God, but yeah. Ooh, I saw this coming a mile away. There's even the foreshadowing line, which I didn't really notice the first time around, but the second time watching it, Dee ends up saying, you know, oh, I'm going to eat him alive or something like that. I was like, well, I guess you kind of do. Kind of did. Kind of will.
Not to mention, can we talk about how many D references there were in this episode leading up to that? Her name is D. Don't be afraid of the D. You know, it was like, oh, and I didn't even think about that line until you just said that.
It's a whole lot of D. Yes. Can we talk for just a half a second about Tipper Gore and how she was used? Because this is a very American Horror Story thing. Like, they will take a real person and bring them into the mythos that they're creating. Can I also say that as much as, you know, if you are not a fan of George W. Bush, you will harp on the George W. Bush era, but I think we dodged a bullet with Tipper Gore being First Lady because she's hella into censorship.
Uh-huh.
And, as much as we would like to erase, maybe at least some of us, whatever your political preferences are, the George W. Bush era, Tipper Gore as First Lady and maybe championing censorship as her First Lady cause, that might have been its own American Horror Story.
I think we wouldn't have been allowed to have this podcast.
That's true. We wouldn't have been allowed to have so many fun shows or so many fun anecdotes afterwards.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, because the Janet Jackson Nipplegate thing happened, I believe, during the George W. Bush era. If Tipper Gore had been First Lady, I think we
Right.
would have just had puritanical TV for at least, that term, or the 2 terms that they're in office.
It would have been the Scarlet N. Janet Jackson would have had to walk around like a giant letter N for nipple on everything that she wore from then on. It would be totally puritanical.
Yeah. But I props to them using a real person, showing us sort of like a Senate hearing. It turned hella violent really fast. It went from 0 to 1,000 when Bitterman just attacked Gore. It was something, and we saw it twice. I was like, did we really need to see it the second time? I guess we did.
And it was accurate because back in that time period, we weren't at the point where there was super heavy guarding in the courtroom. So that realistically, that could have happened. And I'm not going to lie, she was total Dynasty in her power shoulders and blue silky blazer thing and Aquanet hair. And it was very, very telenovela the way he just charged up there and freaking banged her head against the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Priscilla, give me your take on the horror aspect that we saw in this production of American Horror Stories.
My God, I still remember the scene at the very top of the theater production room, I guess, when she just turns around and all of a sudden you just see her face just kind of change, and you can tell that she's turned into that rabid creature, and she just goes for the guy and just bites his neck and just demolishes him. And I'm just like, wow, whoever does the effects, you guys did a really excellent job, because it looks like she's eating his face and just destroying him.
Props to Adrienne Barbeau as Verna.
I was so happy to see her.
I hope we get some classic people sprinkled throughout this. We've gotten the cast for some of this stuff, but I don't know if I knew Adrienne Barbeau was in this. So when I saw her name flash, I can't remember now if I saw the credits before I saw her. No, I think I saw her before the credits. So when I saw her, I was like, oh, look at that. That's kind of awesome.
I think that's going to be a benefit of this series, not being an entire season. It's not as much of a commitment. So, whether it's returning cast members or people that you might never expect to show up, that would be a huge plus.
True. Yeah, they only have to do a couple days work, if that, depending on how many scenes they've got. So, yeah, it could be incredibly attractive, which is kind of exciting, especially after this episode. Although I will say the internet's reaction to this episode, I've seen a lot of negative stuff. Some people didn't like it, which I'm like, come on, people. Have fun.
I really liked this
Yeah.
episode. And I loved the ending of it. So I loved everything about it.
Yeah. I was on the edge of my seat.
But I also loved the kind of ha ending that it was at the very end,
Yeah.
where nobody's happy.
Yeah.
Not like the first episode where everybody's happy. So come on, what did you want from this episode?
I think they
Or-
wanted more from the
Correct.
flagship, the mothership. I think the blessing and a curse is starting with Murder House, because I fell under the guise of misunderstanding and thinking that maybe we were going to see extended stories from that universe, and I think we talked about that last week. So
hmm
maybe people are just expecting, oh, well, this is new and this is original. I don't want that. I want more. But I think this was if this had been the first episode, I would have been like, okay, this is a new spin-off from American Horror Story. We're seeing stuff that maybe never got to be a full season, but random ideas. I love cutting floor stuff, and I love ideas that never come to fruition. This episode actually redeemed my attitude towards this spin-off after the first 2 episodes.
I know I have not heard AHS Diet or Diet AHS throughout this podcast yet.
No.
So, very interesting. If y'all want to get your Murder House thirst quenched, apparently they are filming again in the Murder House. So, I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that's a bad thing. I have read rumors that we will be seeing familiar faces this time around. I don't know what this means, though. Does it mean that they're filming episode 7 right now? Or is this for more stuff? I don't know. I can't tell you that. I've just read the rumor mill. Yes, but stay tuned, I guess. Priscilla sort of touched on it, so we can dive into it. I mean, so we're just sort of talking about generalities about the episode right now. But the ending, it is a dark ending. So let me say this, because I did watch it twice. So with the rewatch, I was still on the edge of my seat. And, like, I knew everything that was going to happen. Like, I knew the end. I knew who was going to die. I knew who was going to survive. And I still found myself in suspense in a good way. So props to just everyone involved in this episode, because I think they really did a great job of making it rewatchable, like any other horror movie that I like. You know, I will know who dies. I'll know who the killer is. I'll know if the killer survives or who's the final people. But I'm still along for the ride. And watching this a second time, I was still along for the ride. And at the end of it, so we have Chad and Kelly surviving. They end up taking out Bitterman. But there were clues that things were not going to end in a good way, because there was the Rolls Royce outside of Bitterman's trailer. There was like a car note or whatever, like a new car type of stuff on it. So clearly it was a brand new Rolls. And then as Bitterman is dying, he's saying, why do you think I have a Rolls? Like, put 2 and 2 together. Like, this isn't the end. This is the first act. You know, there will be an epic conclusion, that sort of thing. And so we see Chad and Kelly finally getting ready to do the D. Duh. And Rabbit Rabbit gets uploaded to Netflix. And the world goes crazy over Rabbit Rabbit. They go Rabbit over Rabbit Rabbit because it's on Netflix, which is awesome and interesting. It's fascinating because we have to remember, I don't know how American Horror Stories is going to work, but I feel like it is going to be in that whole thing of, like, it's all connected to the main American Horror story like they have in the past. So just the concept of this film being out there, I don't know if we're ever going to revisit Rabbit. I don't know if we'll ever see a sequel to this, or if any of these characters, not just the actors, but just characters appear in any of the other American Horror Stories or American Horror Story proper. But the concept is interesting. You know, the movie is out there, and anybody can watch it, and the world is sort of going to go crazy over it. It is a dark ending. There's a happy ending, but there's a twist. You know, magic comes with a price.
And it's Ryan Murphy, who, as we all, especially just with the Mothership series, he likes to sprinkle these spider webs and spin-offs that all connect. I mean, look at Apocalypse, how it connected to multiple seasons. And it makes me wonder if this spin-off is going to kind of, whether to the Mothership series or if it's going to be just within all these episodes, are going to eventually, by the end, have some kind of a link together or something. I thought it was kind of funny how Bitterman was like, this is just the first act. I'm like, okay. I'm almost going to be disappointed if we don't see these characters again, or a continuation at some point, because that was such a clear setup.
Oh, that's interesting, because you took that as more as foreshadowing of even more, like, as maybe another episode of this. I do like that interpretation. I just sort of saw it as, you know, his saga will continue on Netflix. I would actually like to see this story continue. It'd be interesting to see in a sequel episode whether it's just LA. I'm assuming that's LA that we saw. If
Yeah.
that's the only place that's affected, will there be just pockets and they're able to contain it? Will there be some sort of digital print out there that makes a comeback or something after they take this down from Netflix? Will it go to Hulu or something? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That'd be interesting to see. Since I'm talking about location, just really quick, that high school was gorgeous.
Yes.
I have never been in a high school like that. In the beginning, I kept on going back and forth. Are they in college or are they in high school? They kept on talking about Virginia, and I'm like, that's more of a high school trope. He's living with his parents. He could still be in college, because that's a normal thing. But then once they were at the location, I was like, is this college? But then I was like, nah, they seem too much like high school to be in college. Although they're all going to a hard-rated R movie. And, well, I guess they could be 18. They could be seniors. But yeah, I was like,
Or
okay,
the theater just didn't care because it's an older theater maybe.
true that, true that. But that was a gorgeous, gorgeous high school. All outdoors with the lockers. I was like, you can only do that in LA because it like hardly ever rains, right?
Right. I'm like sitting here like my high school was surrounded on 3 sides by corn and infested with rednecks. I want to go to their high school.
There you go.
Yeah. My high school wasn't nearly as pretty as that high school.
Yeah, mine was all indoor, except for like the portables outside. Everything else was indoors.
Mine was from the era where they look like an institution. Like
Oh.
asylum.
Well, there's that.
Aww.
Yes, the ghosts come out at night. Yes. Let's talk about the returning people. So John Carroll Lynch, Larry Bitterman, Naomi Grossman, Rabid Ruth. We had a couple of returning favorites. I really enjoyed John Carroll Lynch. When I saw the dude come out of the van with the film, I was like, that's John Carroll Lynch. Like, yeah. And then it was confirmed when he was chatting with Adrienne Barbeau. Naomi Grossman, they did a really good job of, not to do a pun with her last name, but they made her gross. And it was so good.
She were grody.
She was grody. Like, and she looked cray-cray. Like, there's no way in hell I would believe anything this lady's saying.
Especially because she was the only one there. Like, and that just added the desperation of the character. It's like, no one else survived. I want you to not die. And it just, is she crazy? Is she telling the truth? And I mean, as much as I would being a horror connoisseur, I would love to say that like I would never put myself in a situation where I would watch a movie that might drive me crazy. You never know. I might get an arrogant bug up my butt and be like, no, I want to check this, because I'm a horror fan, So her growth, I loved her. She was so well done, and she just really, really helped. And I was kind of sad when
She got her
scissors
other eye
happened.
popped out.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least this one wasn't swallowed.
I know. I
Oh,
still...
this sucks though. It's such karmic comeuppance for her to get her second eye popped out. Like, god dang, couldn't you like stab her in the chest or something? You had
Right.
the eye.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I was still trying to think, like, visually, how did her boyfriend bite her eye out? Like, I'm trying to... in the position, like, I can't even imagine the position that would be in. But, because the eye socket is sunken in, and, like, even if you're biting, like, can you really bite the eye out and then, like, swallow it? I mean, I don't know.
I think the only way would be to like apply enough pressure that they start to bulge out. That's the only thing, because even if you manage to get the eyelid in your teeth, all you're going to do is rip the skin off. So I was literally trying to picture the anatomy of this happening, and I had the same conclusion. I'm like, that's a little, wow.
You're more of a killer than I am, because I didn't even think of that. So props to you, and now I'm a little scared. But, yeah, poor Rabbit Ruth. She was clearly going to die.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Jeff. If you ever see me in a dark alley, the only thing you have to fear is a great big hug.
Oh, okay. Sounds exciting. Okay, let's see, what else? Let's talk a little bit about just how the nights went. The overall. I mean, we've been sort of talking about the plot, so it's kind of difficult to say. Let's just talk about the plot right now. But let's talk about the pacing. That might be a better thing or a better way to word it. So we get an introduction to all these characters. Then we get the actual night. We see a lot of the knights and a lot of pretty much the characters that we were introduced to die that night. And then we have a bit of a revenge plot to go, stop this director because there are rumors of the film being shown again. They want to put a stop after everything that they experienced, Chad and Kelly. They want to stop the director from doing this again to other people. There's a little line when they're with the director, I didn't notice any splices, so I know you have another copy. So now there's this other copy of the film out there. What do we think of the pacing of this episode? It was only 40 minutes. When I saw the time, the total time of the episode, I was a little worried. I was like, oh, that seems so short to me. And like one of the benefits I would say about being on a streaming service is, you could go to a full hour, as long as there is enough content that isn't boring, that's interesting. I kind of feel like I wanted more, but I don't know where I would have put that more in. The pacing was fine, but maybe because I really enjoyed the story, I craved more. I became rabid for more.
I would have put more within the rabid scenes. Like, I would have put more in seeing what was happening to the other moviegoers, what was going on within their cars, to see, like, when they burst out of their cars or when they started attacking each other and stuff like that. Like, just to put in some more of the ambiance there. Or maybe their friends when they got out of their cars and stuff like that. Because you just saw the friend come out of the car with like some stuff in his hair, but you never really got to see like, okay, well, why does he look like that? What happened to him? How did he experience rabid? Like,
Yeah.
and all of these questions could have been answered within like the time frame of an hour that we
I like
had,
that.
but we just never got that.
I like that. I like all of that. Yeah, that sounds really good. Yeah, I do wish that they would have explored some of that, some of how the friends, because at least I was invested in all of them. I would have loved to have seen how, who was the one, I think that's Quinn, that we saw at the end. I mean, he looked grody as fuck. Like, he went through something. So I would have loved to have seen what he went through. Do we like that we did not actually see Rabbit?
Yes. I
Same.
think that was, yeah. We got like, okay, you get to see a quarter of the movie screen. It just adds to the suspense and it adds to like, you should movies that we're not even going to let you watch it. Like, I think the added ambiance.
I agree. Priscilla, do you agree? Did you like that we didn't see Rabbit? Did you like that it was a bit of a mystery as to what our characters were watching?
Yeah, it made me think it was kind of like Cannibal Holocaust, like it was like a snuff film with some like exorcist with some like actual demon work in there. Like, it made me imagine more of like a whole bunch of other stuff playing out on screen instead of actually seeing it on screen, which makes it even scarier.
I agree with you on that. Were we worried that either Chad or Kelly was going to go rabid? Because we do have moments where both of them look at the screen. Not enough, as they say to Bitterman, not enough to make them go cray-cray. But they did look at the screen. And were either of you? I will say I was. Like, I was very worried because I was invested in the characters. And I was like, I know shit's going to go to hell and I know a lot of people are going to die. But I was like, I was invested in them and I did not want either of them to go rabid.
I was like, is it weird that I was like, as soon as he was like waiting to have sex with her, and they were going through all of this, I'm like, oh my god, he's totally gonna have sex with her at the end of this. Like the comeuppance, the payoff to this in the end is him victoriously having sex with her.
She
So
said
I did
victoriously
not expect
having
him.
sex. There's like trumpets in the background.
Cue the
Exactly.
historical romance novel with Fabio on the cover.
Yes, historical sex. I love it.
I never pictured them dying. Both
See,
of them
I
were going to
did.
survive.
Oh, okay. Okay. I had dread, so I was hoping they wouldn't die. Priscilla never pictured them dying. And you pictured them dying? Both of them?
I pictured one of them dying.
Which one?
I honestly, I thought it was going to be Chad. I thought that
Interesting.
this was going to be Kelly coming out because even with Chad there, the end was very Kill Bill, where they went after Bitterman. I got a very big Kill Bill vibe. So I started to kind of picture something was going to happen where like maybe he was going to action to seeing the film or something would come back on the movie screen or I just felt like something was going to happen where he was going to die and it was going to fuel her and it was going to be kind of her story as the wrap up. I wasn't disappointed that he didn't die, but he still, there was just kind of this element where it could have very much gone the final girl route
Hmm.
and really been kind of like Kill Bill. So I had the same dread. I'm glad that he didn't die really well.
Yeah, I think they subverted expectations because you do kind of think of these sort of
Totally.
films as with the final girl. And so the fact that both of them survived is interesting. I'm glad that they both survived. I was worried for both of them. Like they both saw a little bit of the movie and like how she was looking at it and how he was looking at it. And it looked like he looked at it a little bit more than she did. And then there was that whole thing where it looked like he fainted. And I was like, is that him turning? And then he went all like aggro on poor Adrienne Barbeau. Not poor because she was already rabid herself, but or primal. But yeah, like I was like, oh, is he going through the change? Like I was hella confused. But yeah, I was worried for them. Did any of the deaths hit either of you? Like, were y'all like, "Aw," like with any of the deaths? You know, just as far as acting or maybe, you know, or just anything. There weren't that many like mains or even sides that. Well, there weren't any mains, but they were all like side characters that died. Even some as brief as Adrienne Barbeau. You know, we only had really a scene or two with her before she died. But everyone had like a couple scenes. Did any of the deaths surprise, or were they really interesting, or did you? I don't know. I can't think of the right word, but you know what I'm saying.
Dude, the only one that bugged me was the one with her best friend, the one that
D.
was always telling her
D.
to to not be scared of the D. I was like, use your windshield wipers, swerve, do something, but get
The
him off of your window. What
windshield
the?
wipers do not have that kind of power. What kind of windshield wipers do you have, Priscilla?
I don't know, but you do something. All she was doing was just staring at him, being like, "My friend is in front of me, my friend," and I was just kind of like, "Bitch, drive!"
Yeah, I thought that was kind of ridiculous too, but at the same time, that was probably really hit me in the feels because I actually really liked that character. And I actually would have almost rooted to have Dee survive as well, just because they're acted in. There wasn't many lines, but well written. I don't know. They had a nice dynamic, the two of them as best friends, and I really liked that. So I was kind of sad that like it was possibly one of deaths being slammed into the movie theater with a car.
Yeah, props to his name is Ben J. Pierce, also known as Miss Benny. He's a YouTube personality, gender nonconforming and all that kind of stuff. And he's, I will repeat, like a YouTube personality. So the fact that like the character had just an incredible stage presence, just props, because who would have thought that just someone vlogging, or yeah, I think he also does music and stuff. But like as far as IMDb credits, there aren't a lot. So yeah, I'm just looking. I mean, there aren't as many as you would think. So yeah, props to making the most out of a tiny role.
And I think one thing that I really liked is that gender nonconforming wasn't a topic of conversation at all. it was just normal. And I thought that was really awesome because it's not only inclusive, but it looks to what like the future is progressing towards, and also it allows you to really connect with the characters as people. You know, it's like they didn't have that stereotypical, oh, this is that character. You know, no, this is just a character in the ensemble cast. And I was really, really proud of the show for that because I really connected to that character and really liked it, and I think it was really well done.
Yeah, and I feel like if a show like this had been done, an episode like this had been done maybe 5 years ago, like there would have been the time where in the episode it has to be explained. You know, I am gender non-conforming and this, that, or the other. And that wasn't a topic of discussion. There was, it was like a brief moment, you know, when Dee and Milo were about to get intimate, where Dee was sort of expressing, you know, just frustrations with experiences and that sort of thing. And it was a small moment, but I feel like had this been done 5 years ago, it would have turned into like a big thing. So they allowed Dee to express themselves, and it was done in a really refreshing, dare I say, modern way, which was pretty awesome. Props also.
Did anyone else fear? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I just fear that it was going to be like a joke on Dee, because we're so used to seeing that arc in these. Like, look what happened in Murder. Like how Scarlett got. I had a moment where I was like, I really, please don't let this leading Dee on to like do some kind of big prank or something, and I was really happy that it wasn't.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't even think of that. Just because, I mean, let's be real. Dee was not one of the main characters. Clearly, this was the Kelly and Chad hour. So I didn't think it was gonna. It didn't pop into my brain. Now that you mention it, I think, yeah, you make a really great point because we just saw that. Maybe also because we just saw that. That's why it didn't even pop into my brain.
No, it popped into mine, and I was kind of, oh God, I really hope they don't turn it down into something like that, or they don't make it into like the guy being like a jerk to him on the date or something like that, or just using him or something. I don't know. They don't make it into the like this tragic story or something. Just make it happy, and they did.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens. You can make a dick biting off.
Yeah.
And getting smushed by a car and becoming. I wasn't becoming deceased. Sorry, Jenna.
Oh, burp. Try the veal. We'll be here all week. Yeah. But it wasn't. Fortunately, you know, that was not the way that the story went. And what was really interesting and refreshing, just to sort of, you know, put a button on what Vinny was saying, is just how everyone reacted to Dee. Because, like, even, who was the one that died afterwards? Quinn. Quinn, you know, when Quinn looked over, saw Dee, you know, sucking on Milo, then looks over to the other side, sees Kelly and Chad about to get into that type of situation as well. He's just like, oh, fuck my life. I'm going to be single forever. Which, you know, he was single until he died. Literally. So, yes. There was a line that Chad said early on that was like, I'm going to die a virgin. So that was, you know, there was a lot of talk about death and, yeah, in this. And some people actually did die. All right. Okay, everybody. It's time for the MVP, the most valuable player. State which character impressed you throughout the episode and why. Once a character has been chosen, they cannot be selected again, so choose wisely. We're going to start off with Vinny. Who's your MVP and why?
I'm going to go with Bitterman. John Carroll Lynch, he brought a level of just megalomania, arrogance, just everything that you would want to see in an effective villain in a show or a movie. Like, but the craziest thing is Bitterman wasn't just a villain. He was a villain that you can almost relate to, and that's going to sound horrible. Not that I want to create a film that's going to make people brainwashed and eat each other's faces off, but at the end of the day, he just wanted to have an accomplishment. He had ambition, and his ambition led him down a very dark path, but it's ambition is a human emotion. Wanting notoriety, wanting to be known in Los Angeles is something that plagues a lot of people that live in Hollywood and that area. So it was almost, like in a certain way, it was almost kind of sad, but it was only for a split second. And then when his story finished, I was like, no, you're an asshole. You probably always were. But the way that he portrayed the character and the passion, and he was obviously, I don't want to use the word crazy because he wasn't crazy, but he was at the same time. Like, he was aware that he was crazy. He was aware that what he was doing was absolutely batshit and could probably lead to like apocalyptic circumstances, but he believed in his goal, and no matter what he wanted to do, he was going to do it, and damn the consequences. And he actually made a very fitting, because I didn't understand how they would go from the drive-in to finding just this random guy and it would work, but it worked, and he did it really, really well. So he gets my MVP.
Very good choice. Priscilla, your MVP, and why?
My MVP is going to be Kelly, because I totally got her whole, like, teenage girl who just kind of wants to wait for sex and just, like, is kind of hesitant to give it up to her boyfriend just yet, but wants to trust him. Like, that whole, like, dynamic thing I really got from her. And I really, 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 really liked it when she just nutted up and she's like, I have a dad who's in the Marines. Just let's go. And takes the gun and just uses it against the director with no compunction, no squeamishness, nothing against her. Like, all that teenage girlhood, gone. Now it's just business time, and it's time to get serious because people have died. And I loved that. She was final girl to a T. She was perfect, and I loved her. So yes, Kelly.
Fantastic choice. I became a Madison Bailey stan after this episode. I don't think I've ever seen her in anything. Apparently she's on this show called Outer Banks or something. So I will have to look her up. She was awesome. Awesome, awesome. And I'm going to give my MVP to... I'm going to give it to Renzi Feliz. I know that Chad was a little cringe at the beginning, but I really liked Renzi's acting throughout the whole thing. Like, he was believable as the character, as, when he was chatting with Rabid Ruth, when, he saw his, childhood best friend Quinn, and he was trying to bring him back from, the primal rabidness. Yeah, and also at the end, well, before that, when he went just cray-cray on Verna, killing her, trying to survive, and then the final confrontation that both Kelly and him had with Bitterman. I really enjoyed Renzi Feliz. Yeah, I thought he did a really great job with the character. I was rooting for him much like I was for Kelly, so that's always a good thing. Now, let's rate the episode. How would you rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10 film reels? The point system is allowed, and if you found the episode exceptional and deserving of more than a 10, you may grant it the coveted golden film reel. Burm, burm, burm. Let's start off with Priscilla. How would you rate Drive-In?
I'm going to give it 10 golden... Well, yeah, I'm going to give it 10. I wouldn't give it the golden per se because it still needs that little bit extra of American Horror Story weirdness, maybe like an alien or two, or maybe like a vampire or something, just to tip it into like the what the hell, this is going crazy. As it is, it's just going into some average horror story, and with an average horror story, it was really good. I really liked it. So it's getting a 10 from me. It's good.
So crazy people killing each other. Crazy people killing crazy people was not crazy enough for Priscilla.
No,
I like it.
It needs to be like season 2 of American Horror Story, where you're like it's having aliens and it's having.
Was Sister Jude biting off penises in season 2?
The D game.
But you should.
Oh, the D game. That's That's funny. Okay, no, I respect the rating. I'm just throwing maybe a little bit of shade, but playful shade. Okay, so Priscilla gave a solid 10, which is fantastic, starting off strong. Vinny, where do you stand? How would you rate this episode? Drive in.
You know, I'm usually very stingy with these, but I'm going with a golden film reel. I, to be very honest, watching this episode, like it was over before I realized it. And at first I was like, is it because it was really short? And then no, I realized it was because it was that good. Like there wasn't a moment that I looked away. There wasn't a moment that I was like, oh my God, I hate this character. I hate this story piece. Did I want more? Yes. But even if we never get more, this was a really, really well done episode. I mean, it was total pomp or fluff, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's just a one-off horror story, but it was kind of refreshing, kind of new, and the characters were well acted. There were characters that resonated really, really well. I would have loved more violence and craziness, kind of like Priscilla, not as crazy as I might have wanted, but for the purpose of this show, it all worked really, really well. There were so many just things going on and homages, I feel like, to like past slasher films, and also just like overall, like I wanted to watch it again, and I'm going to. I actually watched it for the first time tonight because I was so busy over the weekend. But I'm going to watch it again because I want to see what else didn't have that desire with the first two episodes. So I was ravenous for this one and I wanted more, and I'm going to give it a golden.
That's what's up. All right, we've got a 10, we've got a golden, and I'm giving it a golden film reel as well. I liked it. I really liked it. It was awesome. It is rewatchable. If I were to introduce this anthology series to anyone that hasn't seen American Horror Story, or even that has, I think I would start them off with this one. Because it was fun. I mean, it was crazy. It was suspenseful. It was horrific in a visual kind of way. It worked for me. I thought they did a really great job with it. And I did want more, but I was completely satiated by with what I saw. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a golden. I really, really liked it. So before we close things out, I have a question for both of you. Do we want to see any of these characters, and I'll put in parentheses, or actors, again in a future American Horror Stories anthology installment, or maybe bump them up to the mothership, beam them up, dare I say, to the mothership? Do we want to see any of these characters or the actors that portrayed a character in this episode again?
Oh yeah, I would totally be fine with seeing the director maybe directing the a movie that he'd done in the past in the mothership, or seeing Kelly and Chad surviving their way through a world post Rabbit Netflix era ways. So yeah, for sure, I would love to see all three of them.
I would adore seeing Adrienne Barbeau again because I absolutely love her. She's a phenomenal actress and she's very versatile. I would love to see her on the mothership. As for other actors, I think Ben J. Pierce, I would absolutely love to see more of. There's definitely a lot of talent there. I had this random thought, like I know they said at one point they are going to be going back and going to Coven again. I could see them rocking a Coven role and joining the witches. I think that would be amazing. And Madison, was that her name who played Kelly? I think that she would be an excellent investment as well, in either future episodes of this one or in the mothership. But I would love to see a continuation of the story, kind of like you, Jeff. I want to see these characters, even if we don't get to see a full hour of it. I would love to see what happened after LA exploded with the Rabbit on Netflix. I want to see where that goes or find out a little bit more.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I basically agree with everybody. Renzi, Madison, Ben, and Adrian, as far as just new people into the AHS galaxy, Nexus, whatever you want to call it. Those four I would love to see again at a certain point. They could be different characters. That's perfectly fine with me, but I thought they were great additions to AHS, period. As far as any of the characters that they played, Bitterman might be interesting to see, as Priscilla said, pop up, in the past somewhere. Yeah, Chad and Kelly, a continuation of them, in the post-Netflix Rabbit Rabbit world would be interesting as well. But if we don't visit this again, I would love just like a call out to Rabbit Rabbit. Maybe some people talking about it as an urban legend on the mothership. That might be kind of neat just to sort of tie that story into the mothership. Or maybe like having a poster of it. We have a film geeky type of character in a future season that has a poster of it. That might be kind of neat as a little wink and nod to it as well. But definitely the 4 actors that I mentioned, I would love to see them again in another installment or on the mothership as a different character. So on that note, join us next time for a brand new installment of Are You Afraid? #AH Stories. Here's our announcer to remind you on how you can interact with us.
Follow Poppy Chulo Radio on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Poppy Chulo Radio. Do you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or concerns? Email us via contact@poppychuloradio.com. Are you interested in joining the Poppy Chulo Radio team as an on-air personality? Email talent@poppychuloradio.com. Binge listen to your favorite Poppy Chulo Radio programs by visiting poppychuloradio.com/archives. You can also download tonight's broadcast and the rest of the series through Apple Podcasts and Google Play. Just search for Are You Afraid? AH Stories and subscribe.
Thanks, announcer. My co-hosts, please wish the listeners a good night, starting off with Vinny.
You think this is the end of the movie? It's only Act 1. See you for Act 2.
And Priscilla.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in and download new episodes of Are You Afraid? #AH Stories every Tuesday via Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and the Poppy Chulo Radio archives. Good night.